Welcome everyone to Legally Speaking. I'm Kenya Johnson.
And I'm Sonia Brown. Legally Speaking is brought to you by the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, GABWA.
GABWA is a voluntary bar association that seeks to advocate for women and children and empower our community. Please remember, this show is not intended to give legal advice, so should you have a legal concern, it's important to consult with an attorney. Today's show is about criminal law, crime and punishment, and its impact on the Black community.
Our guests today are well versed in the criminal justice system here in Georgia and very experienced with dealing with the criminal laws here in our state. When we come back, we'll hear from these two attorneys. Stay with us. There's more to come on Legally Speaking. Welcome back to Legally Speaking. Our guests today are well-known and experienced criminal defense attorneys. Attorney activist Mawuli Davis and attorney, author, and playwright Ted Johnson. Welcome to the show to both of you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We are glad to have you here, but before we get started in hitting this topic, Attorney Johnson, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice, and then we'll have Attorney Davis tell us a little bit about his practice as well.
Sure.
Well, I am primarily a criminal defense attorney, as mentioned. I've been practicing over 20 years. I do deal with major felonies and basically love what I do, have a passion for it. Sometimes need to temper myself and calm myself down. But it's very rewarding when you help good people in bad situations.
Excellent. And Attorney Davis.
I'm a partner at the Davis Bozeman law firm. I'm the trial attorney, so I not only try criminal cases, I also try civil cases. My law partner, Rob Bozeman, all he does is, I'm saying all he does, but what he does is personal injury, catastrophic injury, car accidents, tractor trailers, that kind of thing. And so from a criminal defense perspective, we have a firm of folks that help us get in position when we need to try a case. And so I love it. I get up every morning fired up about being able to go out and help someone. So whether it's someone that's injured or someone that's charged with a crime, I know they need us. And so we're excited about doing it.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Kenya and I are both prosecutors, and we have two very experienced and, like I said, well-known criminal defense attorneys that we've had an opportunity to work with or against, I guess, on how we work with. So, Kenya, why don't you start us with our questions?
Attorney Davis, now you're also known as an activist attorney. Can you tell us about some of the cases that you choose to get involved with?
We have had a number of cases. Fortunately, because Rob, my law partner, were able to take a good number of pro bono cases. And so we try to keep 2 or 3 fairly significant pro bono cases, and one of the ones that we took was a case of Eric Johnson, who was falsely accused in Chattahoochee Hills of being involved in a shooting. We were able to help Eric eventually get the charges dismissed. Eric is now a 3.0 grade point average. He's a junior at Payne College. Just the greatest. He's probably at my house right now because he's always coming over. We spend a lot of time together. And so we've been able to build a rapport with Eric and other young men who have come through our office and have needed not only legal help, but guidance, some mentoring. And so we really try to fashion our firm in that way to be a service in the community, not just a legal arm, but to be there for young men in particular, but for the community in general.
Now, what is it about the Georgia criminal justice system that causes you to want to be so involved and to turn things around for some of your clients?
We just feel as though we see so many of our young people who are caught up in the criminal justice system. They, unfortunately, their record starts pretty early, where they are arrested in school, they're charged, and things just snowball from there. And we feel like there has to be a firm, there have to be attorneys that can jump in the middle of it and kind of stop the snowball from rolling downhill and just say, wait a minute, you can't treat our people this way. And so that's kind of what we see our role as an advocate to really bring attention to some of the tragedies that exist as it relates to the way the criminal justice system treats young African-American men in particular, but African-American people in general.
And Attorney Johnson, sort of piggybacking off what Attorney Davis said and the types of cases his firm takes, what about you? I understand that you do major felonies, and if you could expound a little bit on what, so our viewing audience can understand what major felonies are and how you determine what cases you're going to take and why.
Well, major felonies in Georgia consist of what we call the 7 deadly sins, and that would include murder, rape, aggravated child molestation, anything that carries with it significant prison time would be considered a major felony. I have an open door policy. I usually don't turn down many cases. The law business is a very competitive business, so a lot of times it just depends on whether or not the client can pay and whether or not I can see my way clear of assisting that client. Will I take on the case? So I do have a filtering process, but it's not one where if you are accused of doing something incredibly wrong or bad, that I will turn you away. I will try to help you, and that's, I think, what's make us special in terms of Johnson and Associates, that we try to help people who are caught up in bad situations right their lives again.
Well, what pulls you, both of you, to this? We're talking about the criminal justice system here in Georgia. We have mandatory minimums, and just to explain that to our viewing audience, that there are basically sentences or prison time that are required depending on a particular crime that's committed. We have those sorts of sentencing guidelines here in the state. What draws you to want to do the work that you do within the confines of how our criminal justice system works here?
I think I was born to do it. I've been a criminal defense attorney at heart my entire career, even though I started out as a prosecutor in Chicago. But I believe in second chances. I believe that people sometimes do bad things and they need help. I believe in the Constitution, and I believe in, if you're going to accuse somebody of a crime, that you prove it through the parameters of our Constitution. And I hope that's not too technical, but the humanistic side of it is I enjoy helping people. I enjoy second chances, and so that what draws me to work on these sort of cases. All right.
Now, Attorney Johnson, you and I have shared several cases together,
We have.
and some have ended where we've just agreed to disagree.
Sure.
What areas of the law do you think need the most overhaul as it relates to minority defendants?
I think the sex offenses, and not just to minority offenders, but to all of the kids in Georgia, we have very, very strict laws in terms of teenage sex and teenage experimentation. And we judge, I think, our children much too harshly. And so we need to reevaluate and reassess the fact that we criminalized teenage behavior essentially in Georgia. And so we need to take a closer look at those laws and not make it punishable by having an 18-year-old to register as a sex offender who's trying to go to college. Sometimes I think the need for alternative sentencing, particularly in terms of the sex offenses, we need to take a closer look at alternative sentencing for those sort of crimes.
Sort of what I
Or
say.
behavior, I should say, yes.
Sort of what I say when I go out and speak to the community. We want to put in prison those people who are definitely make us afraid.
Correct.
We
Right.
need to find what we can do for those people we're mad at for what they're doing.
Exactly.
And I think that sort of sums that up as well.
Attorney Davis, where would you like to see criminal law go in the upcoming years as it relates to minorities? What sort of programming do you think is necessary to turn the tide around? We take pleas every day and we see a majority of minority defendants. How should the criminal justice system view certain types of offenses and offenders?
I think there are a number of things that we need to focus on. One, as a community, and as an activist, we don't just take the position that we're just here to defend you. We also take the position that we have to be proactive. So we do internships at our firm. We work with the Let Us Make Man group. We do specifically try to support schools. We make donations every year. And again, it's because of the support the community has given us that we have been able to free up time and money to put back in the community and say, there's some alternatives. And most of the time, growing up on the south side of Chicago, I'm clear that a lot of the things that young people do, they're looking for love, they're looking for affirmation, they're looking for someone to say, hey, I see you, and we're missing them, right? And every day we miss our young people, and when we miss them, they find something else, and that usually involves getting in trouble. And so I think we need to set up more programs in our churches, mosques, our communities, with the assistance and working with some of the courts, so that every young person that's brought to court does not have to go to the juvenile center, they don't have to go to jail. They need to be surrounded by mentors and programs that help them develop trades, because I recognize that college isn't for everyone. So how does a young person make a livable wage? We can't direct everyone to fast food chains and say, you just go work. No, they want to see some of the things that they want to experience some of the things that they see on television. The only way to do that is to make sure they have a skill set and the kind of nurturing and the kind of support that they need in order to be successful. So I think we have to focus on preventative measures, and that's just something that we can do with the courts. Hopefully we can do it before they get in the system by going to schools. But once they're in the system, I think we have to pull some of them out and say, you know what, this kid does not have to continue down this path, and there's some things we can do to help.
Now, you spoke about preventative measures. When a defendant pleads guilty in court, the judge always asks, what's your highest level of education? And a vast majority of the time, the defendants say 16. That's the age that ends compulsory education. How important do you think education is to future criminal behavior?
Well, one of the things that we do and we're clear about is that 90% last year, 90% of the arrestees that went through Fulton County Jail, they did not have their GED or a high school diploma. 90%. We know that about 65% of them are reading at a 7th grade reading level or below. So there's a direct connection between lack of education and incarceration. So we're clear. The problem is, unfortunately, and my wife is a school teacher, unfortunately, the way our education system is functioning, it does not embrace them culturally. It doesn't pull them in. It doesn't excite them. And so they end up deciding that, hey, I'm going to drop out. And they don't care about the consequences. What they care about is, hey, you're not seeing me. There's no reason for me to be here. So I'll go where someone, really appreciates me. And they get that from their buddies on the street and other elements in our community that we know are not healthy for them.
One of the things I sort of preach, for lack of a better term, is if that we want to keep someone out of prison, get them through high school.
Absolutely.
And that's what we definitely need to push with our kids, is keeping them in high school and these alternatives.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Next on Legally Speaking, we'll be addressing other aspects about the criminal justice system and its impact on the minority communities. Stay with us. Welcome back to Legally Speaking. This show's discussion is about crime and punishment, the criminal justice system. We've been speaking with well-known and experienced defense attorneys, Mawuli Davis of the Davis Bozeman firm, and author, playwright, and attorney Ted Johnson of Johnson & Associates. We've also been joined by James Byrd, CEO of Right Way, Wrong Way, Incorporated. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please share with us the purpose and mission of Right Way, Wrong Way, Incorporated.
The short version is to assist ex-offenders or any person who's had any contact with the American criminal justice system in making a transition from prison and jail back to society.
Before we talk about how you do that through Right Way, Wrong Way, what got you started? What motivated you to start this organization?
Think about these numbers: 7,326 days, 241 months, 1,081 weeks, 10,417,812 minutes, and 6 billion plus seconds, which equates to 20 years and 16 days that I was a prisoner at Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola.
And as a result of that, it motivated you. Is it what you saw, what you experienced that motivated you to want to start this organization and helping to, as you said, habilitate others to get acclimated back into the society?
Yes, ma'am. The process the term that we use is called habilitation, not rehabilitation, because to rehabilitate is to restore to the condition or the mindset that the offender was in prior to the commission of the offense. But to habilitate, as per Webster's, is to make fit for functioning in society. What we do is we make guys and young ladies coming out of the system fit for functioning in society. There's the 7 deadly sins that we all know about. With Right Way, Wrong Way, there's the 7 components of habilitation: anger management, conflict resolution, problem solving, relationships, parenting, financial literacy, and the most important one is for young people to be able to do critical thinking as an ex-offender.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about something that, before we went to break, Attorney Davis, you were talking about school.
Yes.
Critical thinking. What is it, and it's great that you're defense attorneys representing people who get involved with the criminal justice system, and you have this wonderful program. How do we do the preventive side of it? How do we get them to be critical thinkers beforehand? How do we keep them in school? What is it that we can do? We know that Georgia is has the 4th largest incarceration rate in our nation. Okay, we're not the 4th largest state.
That's
We're
right.
the 4th largest with incarceration. Something has to change. How has it changed?
And I think we're 49th probably in education achievement. And so there's the direct connection between how our education system has been failing our young people in terms of engaging them and helping them become critical thinkers. When we do No Child Left Behind, the sole focus is just, can you pass this test? Not think. How do we get our young people to think about it? When we do our workshops, because we do a workshop called The Consequences of Thug Life. And so what we try to do is use music, hip-hop music, and one of the things that we do is we do a comparison between that 20 years or that 10 years of mandatory minimum on an armed robbery, and when you do it, when you do 10 years and you get $1,000 for hitting that lick, as the young people call it, you end up making a penny an hour for the $1,000 that you have. So we have to get our young people to think critically. Even if morally I can't convince you, I just come from the South Side of Chicago, that's not a good hustle. To make a penny an hour is not a good hustle. And we have to appeal to our young people in different ways to really get them to think about it. And critical thinking does not have to be just in a classroom. It's wherever we find them, we have to teach them and connect with them.
Mr. Byrd, what additional issues arise from long-term incarceration? An offender may go in for something for a very long time. Who comes out after that incarceration?
Not the same person, that's for sure. What society has done is they've made the mistake of thinking that locking guys up is going to reduce crime, that it's a deterrent. The death penalty is not even a deterrent. The critical thinking aspect has got to be brought into the play with our young folks. Georgia has a 54% high school dropout rate. There's a direct correlation between when you drop out of high school and you do not have a GED or the equivalent thereof, then you're going to prison. affirmative action, in my opinion, was one of the worst things that ever happened to us. Because if you take University of Georgia and a Caucasian student who has a score, a 1200 on the SAT to get in the University of Georgia, but the Negro score is 800. Therefore, if a black student can be accepted at UGA with an 800 score, then the bar is set so low for him that he's underachieving. That mindset is being given to our youth at an early age. We've got to understand that in order to make them achieve, you've got to be able to motivate them properly. Not through sports, not through basketball, football, baseball, but through academics. Look at the disproportionate number of African American females who are in college or getting a higher education, whereas today there are more African American men in prison, jail, or in a custodial environment than there are in every college or university in this country. That's frightening. The solution, see, we've got to talk about solutions here, is what is a solution? Critical thinking, reaching them early, 6th grade, elementary school, middle school. We have to catch these kids at an early age and then get them to buy into an education, as Michelle Obama is doing, as our president is doing. Buy into healthy eating.